Proposition 5. Okay, what will this do? This talks about local bonds, right? So just like the state was asking you to borrow money, your city or your county likes to ask you to borrow money for projects as well. So what this will do is lower the threshold for approval of local infrastructure and housing bonds from a 2/3 vote to a 55% vote. Okay, and this is a big deal, right? Going from 66% of people agreeing to do it versus 55%, that's like a much lower threshold. This will certainly increase a lot of projects that are going to be built all across the state, because other cities have been struggling to do these type of projects because they can't get to that 66% mark. San Francisco, however, if you look on the right, we generally approve pretty much all of this. The blue boxes are approved local bonds. The yellow ones are ones that failed, and so a lot of them failed, I guess between 2000 and 2006. Most recently, this one was what was it? It was called the $46 million bond for earthquake retrofit. It only got 63% of people agreeing to do it, so it didn't happen because you need 66% per the California Constitution. So this will change that, right? One key thing to note about these things is that these local ones, they're funded and repaid directly by property taxes. You might have remembered in previous ballots, it'll say this will probably, for like $1 million property, you will pay $70 more every year in property tax to repay this specific bond. This also includes like housing projects, infrastructure, water, sewer, streets, anything that, there's a list and it's pretty broad. Things that the city believes that if you build more housing, you need to have more services, so that's what is going to be able to be funded with these types of bonds. This one is it's a big deal, but also not super complex. It will just make it easier for San Francisco to come at you on a ballot and be like, hey, can we borrow do you guys want to borrow $60 million to fund housing? Whether that's paying for developments, subsidizing builders, first-time home buyer programs, subsidized rents, that's all included. So it's pretty broad. That's pretty much all the background you probably need for this one.
But the Prop 5 itself is just majority up or down. It's not 66%.
55%, yes. Oh, no.
It's changing it to 55%, right?
This, are you saying how much does this need to pass?
Yeah, does Prop 5 itself, is that held to the same standard as these, like, probably not, right? Like, I don't know.
I'll go check that out now.
Like, do different props have different thresholds?
Yeah, what is the approval requirement for any government problem?
51% normally.
Okay.
But there are some that are like different.
But for, I guess, infrastructure bonds, it's different?
Yeah, for local.
Yeah, you need, right now you need 2/3. Yeah.
Interesting.
I think this is also 51%. I don't see anything different on the.
Alright. Makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Unless there are any clarifying or technical questions on background here.
When it says local bonds are repaid by property taxes, what's that mean?
Everyone that owns property within that area, they'll pay it back. Yeah. Okay.
Will this increase property taxes then?
Not necessarily.
I mean,
It wouldn't be applicable to us, right?
if this passes, nothing happens right away, but it makes it easier for the city to borrow and increase property taxes to pay back.
So,
It's probably not gonna affect, honestly, like, I don't think it's gonna affect San Francisco that much, because we already passed all this stuff.
We pretty much pass all of it.
Yeah, I think it's more for like other municipalities that want to be more like San Francisco. Get stuff done by
is this for
ballot
California?
measure.
California, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, San Francisco, we pretty much pass all of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
It might help San Francisco because if other cities and counties can build more housing,
They would
maybe
kick
there's
people
less
out.
people here, or maybe it's cheaper here, I don't know. So, I don't think I have another slide on this, so. Alright, we can spend a little more time, doing our research, so. Let's do the same group, so let's switch sides, right? So if you're doing for, now you're against.
Sure.
and you guys are gonna be 4.
Sounds good.
And then,
Bye, Sandy.
hop in with these guys.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, why should we vote for this lowering of the threshold for housing bonds? Where we at, you guys?
4.
So, this proposition does not force anybody to spend any money, ever. All it does is make democracy more real. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. No, that's
We didn't agree on that.
okay. Like all this does is like slightly lower the thresholds for local propositions, so that local governments can decide locally whether or not they want to do their own stuff. You know, it's kind of weird when somebody who's like not quite as informed about these issues goes to the ballot, votes in favor of something, and sees, oh, it got 64%. Wow, a lot of people really wanted this local bond measure to pass so that we could fund, the libraries or whatever. And then 64% is like not enough. That's kind of weird, man. So reducing it to 55%, it's a majority, but it's a pretty strong majority, right? And it doesn't fund anything. It's just kind of like if a local municipality wants to do something, then they have a better chance of getting it done. Yeah, I don't think it's going to directly affect San Francisco that much to begin with, because the ballot measures that failed they're pretty few and far between. If anything, it's more important for the communities directly surrounding San Francisco. So I'd say like, San Jose or San Mateo County, if they wanted to do a local ballot measure, they're slightly more conservative populations in general, and I feel like some of them would be kind of like opposed to it, but you might start seeing more housing, more infrastructure spending in other communities, and maybe we would have this homelessness crisis might be solved elsewhere. Like why is it always incumbent upon San Francisco specifically to fund all of these homelessness priorities and whatnot, right? Like why can't that be spread throughout the Bay Area? And I feel like part of it is because of this very high threshold for local ballot measures. So it's like only in liberal San Francisco do these things get passed. So you lower the threshold, more parts of the state, more parts of the Bay Area specifically would be good. Do anything to add?
Oh, I think like you said, also like there would be a lot of downstream impacts on not just like individuals and like families, but also communities, maybe like bringing in more businesses, and like when people are not in a state of crisis or like housing insecure, then they're able to like more focus on contributing or like growing themselves and like contributing to the community also. And like maybe also making housing more affordable for people who are not housing insecure and like able to purchase a home, really, like not just in SF but like all throughout California.
All right, again, go.
Since 1879, California has required 2/3 majority approval to approve most bonds. Why change it now? 2/3 majority means that it's a resounding support. It's not like, maybe support. It is like Californians want this. So 66% has been in place since 1879, and so why are we changing it? If we pass this, we're going to be able to, these proposals will pass easier, and then there's going to be more debt, so we will have higher property taxes. Also, considering the fact that we turned $100 billion in surplus into $73 billion in debt in 2 years, it means that we're probably not managing our money that well. I don't know.
And then one of the other things is with this, it sounds like that we'd have to create like oversight committees and stuff, but that would be a responsibility passed to like local governments. So that's just like more effort, more money, more work that has to go into being able to support like potentially more like ballots coming, like more, more stuff that people want to do and how we spend our money. And it just seems like overarching, it's not just it's not just that like we could maybe build more housing or like solve some of those problems. It's that like we have to invest a lot in it. It's not just changing this like voting amount. There's a lot more effort that has to go into it that gets kind of dropped into the local governments.
Anything else on the against side?
No.
Rebuttal.
Okay.
All right,
Go
just
ahead.
open discussion.
All right.
Well, I say like to the idea of 2/3 majority is better. 66% is like a resounding majority.
Mhm.
If 66% is a resounding majority, like why not 70%? Why not 75%?
Oh.
Why not? Oh, it has to be unanimous, right? Like
It's
I-
arbitrary. Is what
it
you're
feels
saying.
arbitrary to me that 2/3 is like, oh, that's resounding, but 55% that's not resounding. It's like I thought it was majority rule. If you get more votes, then you win, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it is majority rule, but also at the same time, when we think about the majority, 51% or more, we have to like, should we account for people who are uninformed about the issue and just voting to vote? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
If they're concerned about maybe like other issues, and they're just like, you know, voting on their ballot, should we account for like people like that who don't really care too much about the issue? Like, does 5% account for them, right? Do they really care about the issue?
Yeah.
What do
You
you
know what I
think?
mean?
Yeah. It's
I don't know.
55 and up. So like, are people just not concerned about that concern, right? Which is 2/3, sacred means it's a,
I don't know.
it means the community is for sure behind it, or people are just like,
I mean, I think like for the 2/3 thing, when you say like it's been in place since 1879, right? Like you guys got your rights, like women's suffrage happened in the early 1900s, right? So
what do you mean?
like the women's suffrage, like that happened in the
Yeah,
early 1900s,
yeah,
right?
20s, yeah.
That's after this, right? And so I think 1879. The argument of that, I'm just
I agree.
You know what I mean?
agree. Like,
It's
well,
not
we're gonna
about
live our
argument.
lives like in 1870. What am I gonna like?
That's a good one.
Put lead in my paint.
Like there's definitely like
Clean
policy
myself
that
up.
has to be like looked at again,
Mm-mm.
you know. And so the argument that like it's old and it's wonderful and it's been in place for this long is
Yeah.
like not a great
Yeah,
argument.
The traditional.
The
Yeah.
traditional
Right.
argument
Yeah.
is always like suspect.
But yeah, I think like 55% might be too little. I think that 66% might be a little too high.
Alright,
so-
what about 60?
Shake
That's
on
a
it.
good number.
Honestly, like maybe
I like
60 is
that.
better. I don't know. Like maybe 55 is too low. I don't know. But
Yeah.
maybe why not 51? Why not just simple majority? And then
Simple.
suddenly it's like this ballot measure could have gone down all the way down to like a simple majority, and I think the arguments would have been very similar. But it's like no, we're a little bit above simple majority. That feels decisive to me, at least. But
So now
I'm
I
a shill
agree
for
with
this
the
bill.
Henry. It's like I think the deciding factor is like how many percentage do you allocate towards the uninformed vote?
Right.
And then
5%.
based on that, it's like okay,
Yeah.
like
5%.
then you vote either yes or no.
Because
Precisely.
maybe the uninformed vote just doesn't vote, or maybe the uninformed vote defaults to no.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people in like the burbs are like defaulting to no. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, for something like this, yeah, because if you're saying like, wait, my property taxes might go up, I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just don't even know.
Yeah, I also think the wording when it comes to like ballot measures and stuff like that can be tricky sometimes, especially to someone who has not done any research on it, or the language in a ballot measure can be kind of tricky.
Right,
You know, you could
yeah.
be voting no when you need to vote yes.
Yeah,
And so like I
Right.
think you have to kind of also have to take that into account
corrections.
to like the 5%, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The mistakes.
True.
So.
5% is a lot of people though. That's a
Is
big
it?
gap. That's a big gap. Yeah.
How many people is that?
It's a lot, bro.
5%.
Okay,
It's
hold
like
on.
your toe, dude, compared
Wait.
to your body.
Okay, so this
You know what I mean? Like, you know, like
This is for a local proposition, right? So what's the population of, say, San Francisco?
5%.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out, like in my work in corporate governance, people view best practice as simple majority. It's not super
That's what I'm
majority.
saying. Simple
Yeah,
majority.
so I don't know if that sways your view,
And we're
but
giving a little bit
best
more.
practice in corporate governance is 51%.
Yeah, and 5% of San Francisco population is 40,400 people. 40,000 people.
So,
That's
sorry, I didn't catch
what's
it.
this at the local level?
Yeah. So,
What's the
I mean, the idea being, big group of people, it's a big decision to borrow a big pot of money, so it should be more than half, right? Like, if we were going, I don't know, if we were going all in on a car or something, right? Should it just be 50% where it's like we make a big financial decision, or should it be more? So that's the kind of the theoretical part of the discussion. The other part of the discussion is the housing situation, like Brendan was saying, right? Like something has to give, right? The situation is so screwed. Do we give a little on this? Even if you believe that, yeah, it should be more, it should be higher to decide to borrow a lot of money, the situation kind of demands that we need to do something about this housing issue. So that's also part of the conversation. Don't know how much it sways you guys. Like, yeah, it's not the best to lower it, but I mean, that's the only way to get shit moving, to lower it. So,
No, it's good. It's like democracy.
democracy.
It's 66%. I don't know. That feels absurd. That feels like some.
It's a lot. Who's on the fence? Like, who's actually on the fence, or who's against it? Who's for it? I mean, you're
I'm on the
against it.
fence. No, I'm on the fence.
I do feel like it's
Still,
like.
I think I have to think about it.
I
In
feel
the
like it's
fine
being
print
passed.
of it,
Yes.
it says and for this proposition to pass, it bans local government from using money to buy up existing single-family homes to convert them into affordable housing units. So does it really help
Help
affordable housing? This bond
Yeah, it does.
does it?
Yeah.
Well,
Because
they're
it's
buying
just-
up
so
that
they can't,
space, right?
like-
They're buying up that
yeah, they
home and
can't
space, and they're
demo a
converting
house
it.
to
Oh,
make
just so it's
So that-
more.
It can fit more people. Think about it like that.
Maybe I'm only thinking about SF because it's more single housing, but outside of SF, there's more like larger lands that are not
Being underutilized.
underutilized. Yeah.
Yeah. That's in there, I guess, like, to protect the folks who are concerned about the government
Taking up.
taking over stuff and destroying neighborhoods and stuff like that. So it's in there to protect neighborhoods, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So realistically, what would the money be used for? It's to fund existing projects or subsidize certain projects that need some money to get over the line to get started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, I don't think Prop 5's gonna pass.
You don't think it's gonna pass?
I feel like there are too many
It's-
people who are against it.
It's controversial for sure.
There's-
But also the context though.
There's
Is-
$5 million raised in support of it,
Okay.
$30 million raised against it.
But you have to read who supported it and who paid for what.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Well, I
How
guess-
many people?
The person who put it in for it was, isn't it Zuckerberg or something?
Four?
I don't know.
Zuckerberg tried to
I'm not
lobby
sure.
for this?
I'm not
No.
sure.
I'm
I'm sure.
The Democratic Party supports it. California Yimbys support it. Labor Federation supports it. Chamber of Commerce does not support it. The Jarvis Taxpayers Association is against it. And the National Federation of Independent Businesses. So basically, it feels like a pretty partisan split between liberal
Yeah.
and conservative.
It's like the taxpayer
Yeah.
protection groups versus.
Yeah, and I think like
Yeah.
I feel like California is instinctively conservative.
Yeah.
It's only on issues that acquire saliency that it reactivates the sort of liberal side of things. Like I feel like I don't know, when people are sleeping on something, they just do the conservative thing. You know what I mean? That's why I feel it's not passed. But that doesn't matter. Let's just wait.
Yeah. So a lot of local governments are in a really tough place right now because they're getting sued by the state to build more housing. Like they have to build more housing. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Right.
If they keep trying to play games and not build housing, then the developers will like have freer and freer reign to build whatever they want. So basically, if they don't want to have a say in what gets built, they have to build things. They don't want to. If they keep saying no, we're not building anything, then the state just like, okay, then you're gonna lose power to have a say about what you want to
Right.
get built.
And then shit's just gonna get built all over the place.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Oh,
it's,
that's
it's gonna be a free for all, which the housing folks are okay with because they just want to see housing get built because people need housing, so they don't care what it looks like. So I mean that's on this conversation too. Like even if this fails, housing's still gonna get built. Right? Even if you don't want to see housing get built, you can vote no on this. But it's still gonna get built. Like Elk Grove just got sued by the state, and they just settled.
Wait, why? Elk Grove's building so many houses.
But not enough houses for like the poor people, or like
Oh.
and that means like apartments and stuff. They're
Like
not doing enough
affordable
apartments.
housing.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's also context. This one proposition is not going to make or break the housing conversation, but yeah, it would help the local governments achieve their goals that they're mandated to meet.
Give people the freedom.
Wait, so it-
more freedom.
Oh, freedom? You like freedom?
Are you?
Oh!
You guys are anti-freedom.
Who's ever anti-freedom?
I'm pro-freedom. What can I say?
Wait, so it does matter what kind of housing gets built?
Yeah.
A certain amount of low-income housing has to be built,
Yes.
mandated by the state.
Yeah.
That's Always
interesting.
good.
Every city has to bill a certain amount. They all have a number. They have to hit a number by a certain
We
year.
haven't hit our numbers, have we? San Francisco?
We've hit our market rate numbers, but not our below market.
Below market rate.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
BMRs. Yeah, let's get some more BMR
Affordable
units. I could
housing.
actually like live on my own.
Just low income
Depending
Low
on.
income housing.
Okay, final thoughts on this before we move on. In the interest of time, one more and then we'll take a little break.